What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It is the preview show for Sunday's game at Ibrox against Rangers, but there's a lot to get through, as you can imagine. Loads happening eventually, not before time, in fact, long after time, in terms of the transfer window. Loads of comings and goings, some unexpected things as well. Chris is back with me. We will obviously have to start on the other night, Chris, and the exit to the Champions League, which there's been a lot of backlash to, a lot of fallout from, understandably. I suppose this is the first time you've been on this summer, so I just want to get your thoughts on how things have unfolded, and particularly the outcome the other night.
Well, thanks for having me back on the channel as always, Paul. It's a pleasure to be with you and our amazing subscribers. I mean, look, the summer has been a picture we've seen painted 1,000 times before, a story that's been told. It's now as old as time. The board failed to adequately arm the manager with the money and the recruitment strategy that would be required for us to sustain Champions League football. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. The manager is also not devoid of criticism or above criticism, in my opinion, Paul. I think I know he's limited by the selections he had made available to him, but nonetheless, I don't feel like he made adjustments fast enough over the two legs. Ultimately, when you go 210 minutes against a very poor side that are ranked 311th in the coefficient, you ultimately don't deserve to go through for a number of reasons. They've been discussed ad nauseum across many Celtic channels, across many Celtic forums, but there's three major culprits. The board, as I mentioned, because they have refused to, for whatever reason, move away from the legacy biscuit tin mentality that they have had. And I don't care that we spent £26 million last year. That's last year. Club Brugge, who are a consistent Champions League team, are of about the same size as us in terms of our stadium and our general net worth. They spent £36 million. They got almost the same back, and then they just invest it all right away, if not more. And they're a consistent team. So that's a blueprint for how you can consistently be a Champions League team and build from a position of strength. And that's what we've not done. Then the players. The players were terrible. The players that played the game the other night were not good. Probably the worst game Cameron Carter-Vickers has played in a Celtic shirt. Kyle McGregor looked like someone who's played over 500 games in his career. We couldn't generate anything in the forward lines. Our midfield was terrible, and we really didn't look like scoring. I know we had a couple of chances through McCowan and Hatate, but let's be honest, Paul, we didn't really look like scoring despite being clearly, I don't even want to say the better team. On paper, yes, we're the better team, but paper doesn't win you football games. You've said this many times before. So I think the squad is stale. It almost feels like where we were back during the COVID year when we lost the 10 in a row. There's just players that have almost perhaps come to the end of their cycle, and the squad is in desperate need of some fresh legs, fresh faces, and some fresh quality. And that is not something that the manager will be disagreeing with. And then obviously I mentioned it too. I don't think Brendan is above some criticism for the way that he was slow to make adjustments over the course of the two games. And ultimately, when you add all those things up, it just came out to we weren't good enough to go on over the two legs. And now we have missed the opportunity to play in the Champions League for the fourth year in a row, which would have been a record for any Scottish side. And look, I don't think we deserved to go through, but I can't lie that I'm going to miss the Champions League experience, even watching from afar, living over here in Canada. It's going to be very tough to watch Europa League football and going Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday. It's not really the ideal scenario. And honestly, Paul, if the recruitment team and the recruitment strategy at our football club, overseen by the major board and shareholders, doesn't change, then we can expect to see this story play out again and again and again.
Yeah, I agree. I made that point the other night, and I think it's not just that we'll see it play out again and again. We have already seen it play out again and again. The 5th year running when we've had to qualify for the Champions League, we've failed to do so. I think at least 4 out of 5 of those are hugely down to under preparation. I think the first season under Postecoglou is maybe acceptable, given that there was such a high turnover in players there, and that was like a second qualifying round that came very early in Angie's tenure. But we have seen this movie time and time again, and I'm not going to repeat myself from the other night. I'm sure that anybody who watched the video understood my feelings on it. I've watched a lot of the other channels as well in the last couple of days, and I think most people are of the same opinion. I think that obviously there's a lot of responsibility to be taken for the manager. I think there's huge conversations, important conversations to be had around the cycle of this squad, the hunger. Have they lost the eye of the tiger, as Roy Keane would call it? Have they lost that desire, and have they lost that edge? Because I think it looks like a Celtic team, certainly over those 2 games. It's almost unrecognisable from the team of this time last season. And obviously the players are culpable in that as well. But I think the predominant takeaway, as it has been in these years where we've failed time and time again to get past these teams that we should, on paper again, football's not played on paper, but with the resources that we have and the size that we are, we should be able to get past over 2 legs. And I think the problem is, the problems have existed so long that we've gone full circle. I've covered this in the Substack article I did the other day. We've gone full circle from 2014, from Legia Warsaw and Maribor, and having the excuse that, listen, we don't have the money, so we have to wait until we qualify, until we can get deals done early doors in a transfer window. That's why we can't get deals done early doors, sorry. And now this year, 10 years on, with the guts of 100 million quid in the bank, the deals still can't get done early. And I listened to Brendan Rodgers in the press conference today again, field the same questions that he's been fielding all summer. And I mean, nobody really knows exactly why Celtic can't get deals done. But I think if you read between the lines, it's very, very simple and very clear to see that the stumbling block is, when it comes to actually doing the deal, it's the people who handle the negotiations and do the bids and try and get the deals over the line. And that, as far as I understand it, is the chief executive. And I think that what we've watched unfold in numerous transfer windows now in the last 2 to 3 seasons point towards an ineptitude there, point towards the complete lack of ability to do the basics of his role. And will there be that's the big question, is, will there be accountability for the people in these executive positions that have failed to do their job this summer? The story with Celtic all too often is there's no accountability. We've been here time and time again with poor planning, poor decision making, zero accountability. The COVID season's top of that list. What's changed in the Celtic boardroom since the COVID season? Not a single thing. So, yes, my opinion is that the lion's share of the problem here lies in the Celtic boardroom. Chris, the Europa League draw was today. The fixtures, as you can see, and I'm sure most of you know already, are running along the bottom of your screen now. AS Roma in there, Feyenoord, Braga, a trip to face Red Star Belgrade away from home, which I'm sure will be lovely. Midtjylland in there as well, a trip to Bologna, Sturm Graz at home. They are Europa League fixtures. And Chris, as you know already, we've talked about this in the group chat, and I'm gonna pass the baton back to you in a minute. But again, watching a lot of the content and the fallout from Tuesday, there's a lot of discussion around how you possibly make change in the Celtic hierarchy. How do the fans get some sort of improvement to the way that things are done? And it's really difficult. It's really difficult, but there's a lot of things being talked about, whether it be protests or the Celtic Trust trying to again get to 5% and see if they can have some sort of sway in terms of the shareholding. But I think for me, I thought a lot about it, and very reluctantly came to the decision that I'm not going to buy the Europa League package. I'm not going to go any Europa League away trips. And I can already hear people thinking, well, isn't that entitled and isn't that spoiled? It's nothing to do really with the Champions League and not supporting the team in the Europa League. I've bought many a Europa League package. I've been to European away trips in the Europa League over the last 10, 15 years, and I've just had enough of the people who run the club doing the absolute bare minimum and charging a fortune for it. It's not. I don't expect Celtic to be in the Champions League every year, but I do expect the people in high-paid executive positions to perform the basic functions of their job. And this summer they haven't done that. We're going to come to the transfer business that is being done now, with less than 3 days to go. But this time, above all others, I've had enough of it. I don't think there's any excuse, given the resources the club have got, for where we are. And it's just been 1 year too many of negligence, really, in the boardroom. And so I'm not going to buy Europa League package, very reluctantly, because I love going to watch the team. I've paid my season ticket. I've invested thousands of pounds like everybody else has over the years watching Celtic. But I really am at the end of my tether with how things are handled in the boardroom. And again, I think the very, very least the supporters can expect is a bit of courtesy and a bit of communication about certain things at the club. So the club have built up these huge resources over the last 3-4 years, based on player trading profits, based on 3 consecutive Champions League campaigns, and they haven't done an awful lot with that money. I think that tells you that there's a lack of ability to plan as well for having those kind of resources. One of the things they've done is the infrastructure investment at Barrowfield, which I don't believe is open yet. Does anybody know what's happening with it? How difficult would it be for Celtic to update the supporters on what's happening with that? Not very difficult. It would be as easy as a tweet. It would be as easy as a post on the website, a YouTube video. It could be anything, but there's no communication. None of the basic fundamental things that you should expect of your football club when you plough a fortune into it are really met. And so I digress, and I'll pass it back to you, Chris. I suppose you can give your thoughts on the Europa League draw, and I suppose what we lose on in terms of having to be in the Europa League versus the Champions League.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, listen, I echo a lot of your thoughts. I mean, back when I lived in Scotland, I regularly attended Celtic games. I've bought Champions League packages. I spent a lot of money following the club, and nobody can tell you that you're entitled. No one, because this is the only way that. So there's 2 ways. People can protest, and it's not really a good look when you protest, but sometimes it is required. But ultimately, the best way is to vote with your feet. And in this instance, that is, you're not going to attend the games, and you're not going to continue to plow money into the club when you don't believe that the best interests of the club are being managed by the people that are in charge. And that is fully evident with what we have seen over the last few years. Look, we all understand that our player trading model and the ability to have regular attendance in the Champions League is how we as a club be in a healthy financial position. But if we have too much money in the bank, we're going to be paying millions of pounds in tax because we have more money than we should. But more importantly than that, reinvesting into the squad with a certain quality and level of player is what allows us to have a stronger chance of consistently being in the Champions League. And you essentially asked me the question, like, what do we lose by not being in the Champions League? Well, number one, the glitz, the glamour, and the unbelievable ties that we've seen at Celtic Park over the last couple of seasons. Our performance last year against RB Leipzig was probably one of the best European performances I've ever seen. I actually went back and watched that game in the summer, and just the level of football that we played, even the way we played away against Bayern Munich. And if you'd said that 6 months ago we'd be here, or 6 months later we'd be here now with this feeling, I'd have said, no way, there's no chance that the club are going to let that happen. Well, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, right? Because here we are again. The club have failed to invest in the squad, failed to back the manager. And within those failings, it's evident to exactly what you said, Paul, that the people doing the deals, which I agree, it's Michael Nicholson. Buck starts, stops, ends with him. Clearly, it's not working. Clearly, it's not effective. And if you and I were that ineffective in our jobs, we would be held accountable and we would no longer have a job. And to your point, there is no accountability. At least that's how it appears from the outside looking in. So we're going to have to accept reluctantly that the Europa League is where we're going to plow our European adventure this year. I don't think you will be the only one, Paul, that votes with their wallets and votes with their feet and doesn't buy the packages. And when those profits are not as big as the club would like, then you do wonder, will they look themselves in the mirror and decide, do some people need to be held accountable? I'm not sure if that will ever happen. But something does have to change, Paul. There's no two which ways about it, because let's also be very honest. While our dominance in domestic football is wonderful and we love poking fun at our rivals from across the sea, they are in absolute turmoil right now. They are just in a shocking state of affairs. And if it wasn't for the fact that they are so poor and have been so poorly run and made poor decisions with managers, would we have continued to have had the dominance this season? Time will tell. We'll probably, and maybe we will win the league this year and we'll win one of the cups, but like, it's been a pretty shocking state of affairs across the other side of the city. Now, we can only control what we can control, but that's part of the problem. We aren't addressing the systemic issues that surround our recruitment and our ability to build from a position of strength. And if at some point in the near future we lose a league title, you can imagine that the unrest amongst the supporters will be even stronger, because ultimately we've been spoiled. We've been spoiled for 17 of the last 23, 24 seasons, Paul, when we've won the league title. It's an unprecedented period of dominance. But if you do not strengthen from a position of strength, then you can only blame yourself if you don't ultimately get to the stage and the platform that you think you should be at. And in our case, that's the Champions League. So the Europa League will be, I'm sure, great. There'll be a few fantastic ties in there, and I am sure many Celtic fans will make the trip. But there's no doubt it leaves a bit of a bitter taste in our mouths, Paul, with just the fact that we've done it to ourselves again.
Yeah, and I just want to pick up on a couple of things you said there. I don't think, I'm not doing this because I think it'll force any change. Of course it won't. Somebody else will buy my ticket. That's how it works. I mean, it's like my life following this football club, and it's not for me to tell anybody else how to support Celtic. And that's my decision, and that's my opinion on it. Between the back end of the 23-24 season through to the end of last season, I was at 94 consecutive games. So I don't take a decision like this lightly, but I've just had enough. If the club don't prioritise European football, why should I continue to plough in a fortune, spend a fortune going these away trips, spend time away from my family? Why should I? Because they clearly don't care. Now moving on, Chris. Before we get to the Rangers game, which we're here to talk about, that tells you how much is going on. That the actual game this weekend is almost on the back burner. We have signed a footballer. It took us 40 days since the last permanent signing that we made. Michel-Ange Balikwisha is in for £4.5 million from Antwerp. I think just before we came on air, Celtic announced the season-long loan deal for Marcelo Saracchi as well, the left-back from Boca Juniors. So just your thoughts on those deals, first of all.
Yeah, I mean, look, we certainly needed some backup in the left-back position. I mean, Tierney, obviously, it's great that he's back, but he's clearly not able to manage the rigors of 90 minutes yet, let alone playing 2, maybe 3 games in a 7-8 day spell. So it's obviously clear that Inamura isn't really Rodgers' favorite, so to speak, even though I thought he played well the other weekend in our recent home game. It's clear that he isn't the first choice, second choice. So this left back signing from Boca Juniors, Saracchi, we'll see how it goes. Very interesting circumstances how he came to the club, that they reached out to us. I mean, like, if the rumors are indeed and the stories are true, but nothing would surprise you with Celtic's recruitment anymore. So Balikwisha, I think, is a fantastic signing, very young player. From what I've read, he enjoys playing on either side, left or right. So that's a typical Brendan Rodgers type player. Dynamic width is something that we are missing. I mean, let's just be very honest. James Forrest is a legend of the football club, but he is past his prime, and his ability to contribute to the levels he once did have been and gone, right? And I hope he makes a decision at some point soon that maybe this is his final year and he goes out with that legacy fully intact. I wouldn't want it to tarnish what has been an incredible service to Celtic Football Club as a one-man club. We're so fortunate to have had him and Callum McGregor for the better part of 15, 16 years, Paul. But winger reinforcements are huge. Yang isn't going to cut it long term. We've said, oh, it's another chance for Yang. It's another chance for Yang. Well, he never takes it. He's not at a Celtic level. He's not a Celtic player. So can we just move on? And it does look like, we're actively pursuing another winger as well to close out the weekend. So I think if we were able to get another winger in, then I think it's Tounetki is his name, that we're actively pursuing for around 4.7 million. That would be a solid piece of business. And then obviously we know that Idah has completed his medical to go to Swansea, but we haven't got the Dolberg deal across the line yet. But if we had done all of this business a month ago, Paul, probably nobody would be sitting here feeling like it was a horrendous window. We might not be sitting here saying it was a stellar window, but most Celtic fans would probably be pretty happy with that. I still think we need another holding six midfielder. And I think you can make an argument that we might need another type of Matt O'Reilly, Tom Rogic type player to sit in that 10 role.
You're getting carried away now. There's no chance any of to.
I know, and I get that, but I'm just saying from what I see of what the squad need, Paul, it's another 6, another 8, 10, and we probably need another central defender. Like that, if we're completing the signing of 2 wingers, a striker to replace Idah, then we're in a much better place. The last thing I'll say on the squad is I was impressed with Shin on the other weekend. His movement was excellent. But the the comparison I'll make is we saw those runs with Kyogo all the time. And in Brendan Rodgers' system, it doesn't really suit that type of player. Under Ange, that type of movement is what allowed Kyogo to have his tremendous second season where he scored 34 goals in all competitions, Paul. But I do think there's something in there as a player, but the immediate quality and injection of quality that we need necessitates us actually putting some money out. And, the Danish striker, Dolberg, looks like he's a real player. So if we can get all these deals across the line, I'll be happy. But it's a month to 6 weeks too late, Paul. Like that's, and I will not be absolving the board of any of their responsibility, even if we do get all these deals across the line. It's too little, too late.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with Balikwisha, Brendan Rodgers said today that's a player we've been monitoring for 12 months. I think we're going to come and talk about the Idah, Kasper Dolberg situation now as well. And I think the story is there that, again, the Dolberg deal was one that Celtic had been, was it exploring the conditions of last month or monitoring the conditions of? There's been a lot of those phrases in the media throughout this summer. And again, we didn't save any money by waiting to get Balikwisha in the door. We could have done it a month ago. We could have done it 4 weeks ago. And that is where it comes back to complete gambling. They really chose to sit on their hands here and not get deals done. And whether that's because there was some sort of office politics in-house between the manager and the recruitment team and the board, or whether it's because they need to get a bargain and they need to feel like they've really won every single deal, I don't care. I don't care what the excuse is. It is unacceptable and it is negligent to sit on your hands with those resources all summer. So yes, it is too little, too late. But let's talk about the Idah deal, Chris. I think that's came out of the blue. I think it's came out of the blue to the club as well. But £7 million, the deal worth up to £7 million. I think as a nice sort of natural parting of ways with Idah. He's only been here permanently for a year. We spent a lot of money on him. A deal again worth up to £9.5 million. Whether there's some add-ons in there that probably haven't been met because he's only been here for 12 months. We're not really sure about those, but I think getting £7 million back, parting ways, and being able to have the opportunity to bring someone in to replace him feels like a bit of a blessing in disguise maybe for us.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think, for whatever reason, I mean, Adams had a couple of big moments, obviously, in a Celtic jersey. Probably the goal, although it wasn't given to him, but his involvement in the young boys goal that ultimately saw us make it to the last 24 in the Champions League last year, and then obviously the cup final winner with only a few minutes left is his name will be etched in Celtic history for that. But you just never really, I never got the impression that he was a Celtic striker or that he was really ever going to score 25, 30 goals a season, which is kind of, it's not a prerequisite in a Brendan Rodgers team by any stretch of the imagination. We know that Rodgers likes to spread the goals around across that front 5 or 6, but nonetheless, you just never felt he was carrying enough of a threat. He seemed to be seriously lacking confidence. His play so far to start this year suggests that he was unhappy. And I think, to your point, if he goes and Dolberg comes in, then maybe it is a blessing in disguise. But he's clearly not happy because the club have, in all intents and purposes, greenlit the move, but it won't be rubber stamped until we have a replacement confirmed and in the door. And that may or may not happen between now and Sunday or Monday. So my question is, if the deal for Dolberg isn't done before Sunday, is Idah in the squad to face Rangers? Because how could you in any good faith have him even on the bench when he is 99%
completed a medical?
He's completed a medical, so I don't even know the legality of, could you play a player that's already completed a medical for another club. Only Celtic could put themselves in this situation, right? Once again, it just smacks of the ineptitude and negligent, complacent behavior that our recruitment team, under the tutelage of our CEO, continue to peddle.
I just want to mention there on that topic again. I really don't want to talk about this all night. I know it seems like I do, but Brendan Rodgers also alluded today. I think he referenced Club Brugge as well, but he said about how efficient you have to be and how that when a season finishes, you don't go off on your holidays. Like the business has to get done early. Again, I think all of these things point to one place really, and I think it tells you everything you need to know. I think Idah, yes, had some big moments. I think you could argue that he paid his transfer fee in the loan deal that the loan deal that he spent in that 4 or 5 months. He scored goals that won us the league, which secured this Champions League qualification the following season. Like you say, he scored against Bratislava. He was involved in the goal against Young Boys, which put us through to the final 24 in the Champions League. He's had some big moments. He scored goals, but I think we're all clear that he was never cut out to be the first choice Celtic striker. I think Kasper Dolberg, at 27, who's played for some big football clubs, has a good goal scoring record as a player of adequate pedigree, and I think Celtic always look for this sell-on value and players under the age of 23, 24, and I understand that as part of the model, but I think there's definitely room for one or two players of 27, 28, seasoned professionals in their peak years who have played at some really good football clubs. I think there's room for that, and I think Dolberg is a good replacement for Idah.
Yeah, agreed. I can't argue with that, Paul. I mean, from the highlights I've seen, Dolberg, like you say, he's an accomplished player. He's played at some good clubs. He's got a good goal scoring record. He's a Danish international. So that would be a good piece of business. That's about the only compliment I would give the club if they get that done.
It's not done yet.
I know. I said if the club gets that done, and I'd be excited to see him play. And this next 3 days is going to be very interesting because the next topic, obviously, we're going to talk about is probably the first derby of any season in my lifetime as a Celtic fan that I'm like, okay, we're playing Rangers, great. Like, honestly, that's how it feels, because everything else that's surrounded the club for the last 6 weeks has just been leading up to this moment, right? Every day that went by without players being signed and the manager having to answer the very difficult questions and then becoming more and more forthright. We started the season okay. We haven't conceded a goal yet in the league. We didn't concede a goal over 2 legs against Kairat. Not that that's really an accomplishment, but I think the only goal we've conceded in any competition is the League Cup so far to start the season. So sure, we've been okay, but we haven't blown the doors off of anyone. We don't look like that team that was really cohesive and had an excellent flow about them through huge chunks of the season last year. Kind of tapered off after the Bayern Munich ties. I think that really did leave its mark on the squad at that particular time. But Paul, we haven't nearly hit the heights. And the fact that we are going into this game on Sunday 6 points clear of Rangers after only 4 games is because they are in even worse shape than we are. Like, it's bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll turn our attention to the game. You could be forgiven for forgetting. There's a game at the weekend. As you say, I don't remember a derby that seems as insignificant to both sets of supporters for different reasons.
Yes.
For a long time, if not ever, because we are obviously hurting off the back of that Champions League exit. There's a hell of a lot of work to be done in the closing days of the transfer window. There's a big backlash, understandably, to how things have unfolded this summer. and Rangers are a mess, like an absolute mess, and they haven't won a domestic league game so far this season. They've had 3 draws against Motherwell, Dundee and St Mirren, and so that means for us, if we go and beat them at Ibrox on Sunday, are we going to feel? I mean, obviously we're going to, if we beat them, we're going to love it because we love beating Rangers. But as you always do with your biggest rivals, but our problems are not going to go away if we beat Rangers on Sunday at Ibrox. And for them, they are at the end of their tether with their manager after only, 2 months?
Yeah.
9 or 10 games, that they seem to be at the point, from what I can gather, that even if they win this game, they still want to get rid of the manager. So it's a crazy situation
It
to be
sure
coming
is.
into one of these derbies in. I suppose the big questions really are, can Brendan Rodgers, and this comes back to his role and the players' role in the Champions League exit, can Brendan Rodgers get the players to play with that hunger and that desire and that aggression that's been missing for probably the best part of 5 or 6 months now since we left Munich? That's the big question. In terms of the lineup, Chris, Balikwisha's got to go straight in, hasn't he?
I mean, he's not obviously had a lot of time to train and not a lot of time to work on our system, but he 100% needs to play. Otherwise, why did you sign him? End of discussion. Like, I don't care. Play him 60 minutes, see what the kid's got. Baptism by fire. You know, Alistair Johnson signed for Celtic and went right to Ibrox and played tremendously, right? If you're a good footballer, your quality will come through. So let's put the boy in. You've probably got no choice. You're probably going to play James Forrest on the right. You could play Nygren and then go with the middle 3 of Hatai, Engels, and McGregor. That's kind of the decision point. Maeda is clearly going to play through the middle. And then the back 4 right now, you know, ultimately picks itself, right? It's going to be Scales and CCV, and it's going to be Ralston and Tierney. So that I agree, Balikwisha should be right in from the start, 100%. Like no ifs, ands, buts, or maybes. But you know, Paul, we have not beat Rangers in 90 minutes since August of last year.
1st of September, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So there is an onus on the manager, as you said, to motivate. Can he motivate the players? Now, you shouldn't really need any motivation for this game, but like there's a lot of different things that, like you said, are simmering below the surface for both sets of supporters. For me, I don't think we've played well against Rangers and dominated a game going back to the 1-0 game at Ibrox, where I thought we thoroughly outplayed them. Even though we only won 1-0 that day, I felt like we were in complete control of that game. And then the 3-0 game, obviously, to start the league campaign last season at Celtic Park was a pretty dominant win. But since then, I don't think we've played particularly well. So I'd like to see a response to that run of games and performances, and I want to see a reaction to the other night against Kairat.
Yeah, I think that's massive. I think we obviously have to respond to the exit during the week, and I think, again, like you said, the record in these recent derbies hasn't been good. We were obviously, I mean, we got battered at Ibrox in January there in the 3-0 game. We shouldn't have lost the game at Celtic Park 3-2 late on. We were very poor in the first half of that game. Kind of recovered it a wee bit in the second half to get back to 2-2, but again, you never came away with the feeling that we'd performed properly. We'd performed really well. Brendan Rodgers again alluded to that today in the press conference, that it's about the performance level, and we haven't quite been there, and that is entirely his responsibility to get the team there. But I think looking at the lineup, there's loads of concerns. I think you mentioned Dyson through the middle there, who I think, I mean, he looks like a shadow of the player from last season, and it's easy to say that. But again, I think there's part of that that's natural when you have a stellar season like that. There's always a drop off, but he looks really, really low on confidence. And again, one of the sort of bargain one of the ways that we've bargained about the transfer business in Scale we left in January was that, well, Dyson can play through the middle. He plays there for Japan, and he's missed these 4 huge chances through one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and there's no doubt that he can play there, but I don't think that he should be playing there. I think there's a reason that he's played most of his football for Celtic on the left-hand side, and the quicker we can get him back there, the better. But I think you're right, he's going to have to play through the middle because Adam Idah is as good as gone. He's certainly not going to go with Johnny Kenny or Shin Yamada from the start in this game. And we don't have it. We don't have anybody else. Even if we get a deal done, it's not going to be done and have a player here like Dolberg or whoever it may be in time for Sunday. This is late Friday night. And again, there's big question marks in terms of the back 4, whether it be Tierney's fitness, Scales and Carter Vickers. Everybody knows my feelings on Scales. Carter Vickers recently has looked like a totally different player. We don't have AJ at right back. We've got Ralston, who didn't train today, but Brendan Rodgers says he'll be okay. Maybe a shout for Kobe Donovan to start in that position because he's looked competent when he's come on. But again, it's a lot to ask of a young player to go in there and play in this game at Ibrox. There's a load of concerns through that starting 11, whatever it looks like for me, Chris, and we've been so used to coming into these games really confident about the players' ability to go and deliver, whether that be their form recently or just their performance level in this fixture, but we don't really have that to lean on just now. And again, despite how bad Rangers are, you've just got concerns about that Celtic team just now.
100%. Yeah. I mean, look, in any normal scenario over the last couple of years, I would have told you that even if we weren't on form, that I feel like we could still carve out chances and that we would have opportunities to score at the game, and we'd have periods of dominance in the game. I haven't seen enough from the Celtic team of 25-26 so far that gives me any confidence. In the games we've already played this year, I'm just sure we dominated that League Cup game. We're supposed to, right? We're supposed to dominate a game like that. But we really haven't had spells where I felt like, oh yeah, like we're really on top of it. And whether we like it or not, Rangers in recent times have been able to, despite turmoil constantly going on, have found a way to get themselves up for this game. Now, it sounds like Raskin is not going to play. He's fit and available, but I think there's issues going on there where he's probably looking to move on as well. Igaman is apparently gone for pretty good money, and they're on the verge of signing Miofsky. So, like, they're doing plenty across the say, but we can only worry about ourselves, Paul. Look, I still think we have clearly got the better manager. If our best players show up and play the best on the day, then we should be fine. But I am definitely looking to see if we get a bit of a reaction. I mean, we always talk about the first goal in this game, and we've talked about the ways in which the two sets of supporters are playing or are looking at this game, Paul. If we do score first and if we do happen to score early, well, that's where the Rangers fans are almost inevitably going to be all over their players. And that could be a recipe for disaster for them. I mean, they got an absolute hiding on Wednesday there by Club Brugge. Like, I mean, they just got so badly outplayed, outclassed, outcoached, outsystemed, just out everything. So their fans will be looking for a similar reaction from their players. So it is a very unique circumstance that we go into this game. I honestly do not know how this game is going to play out. Normally, I'm very comfortable and confident and can make a prediction, but I honestly cannot predict how this game is going to go.
Aye, as a strange one, and I think that the big thing, I suppose, just to round us up on the conversation about the game, we really have to see this Celtic team perform in a big game. The talk before going into Tuesday was that, again, since the Bayern Munich game and given the derby form last season, there's huge question marks around the team's ability to go and win big games, which has never been a thing for years. you've always been able to rely on the Celtic team turning up and winning the big games. There is question marks over that now. Tuesday was a time where they had to go and get it done, and they didn't. The cup final was a day where they had to go and just get it done, and they didn't. And the two league defeats to Rangers again are the derbies, regardless of the context, how far ahead we are, whatever intangible reason you want to try and look at to explain away our performances. Those are big games that you have to go and win. And I just want to see a Celtic team that can go and grab a big game by the scruff of the neck and win it on Sunday, because I think it's been a long time since we saw that. And I know that most of them are well capable. They've got it in them. We've seen it before, but we haven't seen it for long enough. And there's no better place to do it than to go to Ibrox and win well on Sunday. Chris, I suppose before we round up, we should touch briefly on some of the other transfer stuff that might happen in the next couple of days. I'll be back with the starting 11 tomorrow. There is this pursuit of Tounetki, the Tunisian winger from Hammarby. There's a link to Yang going to Birmingham as well. Brendan Rodgers talking about that today, saying that he's one that we would have let go. Again, just to bring it full circle to the ridiculousness of this summer, Brendan Rodgers is saying, well, we would have let Yang go, but he's had to be here. Yang, who started the other night on the left-hand side in the biggest game, the defining game of Celtic season, he started on the left-hand side, and we could and should and did want to get rid of him a month or two ago. That's how bad it is, but we'll keep tabs on those. Anything else that you think will get done? Obviously, Dolberg's a big one.
That's the one I really want to see get done. And I mean, if the other winger gets done too, Paul, then I'll be satisfied. And I think at that point you probably would see Yang leave, and you'll definitely will see Idah leave. And then it will be, the transfer window will be closed until January, and we're going to kind of get through the long grind of October, November, December, where we'll play inevitably a lot of football again, and we will see how the squad will indeed stack up going into the New Year derby, which will obviously be at Celtic Park this year. So I'm curious to see how the weekend plays out, obviously with the transfer business and the game on Sunday, and then the subsequent weeks and months, and how does this team progress. And then as we get into the new year, Paul, the inevitable conversation will shift to what is Brendan Rodgers going to do, right? And that will be a conversation for another day.
Aye, as I think we all know that he's going to leave at this stage, though. And after the shambles of this summer,
Who can blame him?
Who can blame him? There you go. That's it, Chris. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening to my rants for the majority of this video. Like I say, I'll be back with you tomorrow with the starting 11 prediction. I'll see you then. Thank you.